There we go. Hi. Welcome back to the developer sessions here at EGX 2018. I'm so glad you could join us. This next session is going to get right under the hood of Team Sonic Racing, and I'll be very much obliged if you could give our guests from Sumo Digital a very warm welcome.
Hey guys, welcome to our talk. We're here to tell you a bit about Team Sonic Racing today and tell you a bit about how we have put teams' actions into a racing game. We'll hopefully show you something new that you haven't seen before and explain a bit about the process. And I am Jazz Moore, and these are my colleagues, Peter Harries and Ben Wilson.
Hello.
We're all from Sumo Digital Nottingham. This is some stuff that we've worked on. Things such as Little Big Planet, Hitman, and Snake Pass, which is our own IP, as well as all these other titles which we've worked very closely with Sega on over the years.
So Team Sonic Racing, this is our newest game. It's what we're here to show. Oh, thanks, clicker. It's a arcade racer, kind of following on from the lineage of All Stars Racing and All Stars Transformed. We've done some new things with this one, though. This one is set in the Sonic universe, which is a bit of a departure for us. We've got all new characters, a new cast of characters, and driving styles. We have a vehicle customization system. We have a bunch of new and remastered tracks taken from the Sonic universe. But we also have, a lot of familiar stuff as well. If you played any of the previous games, there's a lot that is familiar. You're still kind of drifting, stunting, boosting around, blasting away enemies. The thing we're here to talk about is, there's a lot of new stuff. We don't have time to talk about it here, all. We're just going to talk about one aspect, which is the team gameplay, which we've kind of made the central thing for this game. So we set out to kind of make a new spin on arcade racing. We wanted something that was kind of unique to the genre, something that hadn't been worked on. And we found it really exciting to tackle this this project. The big thing we wanted to achieve with this one this time around was the feeling of being in a team unit and all of the gameplay revolving around that. We wanted to kind of create unique moments where you're helping each other out on the track, out of tight spots. You're kind of forming these rivalries with the other teams and kind of getting this sense of a shared enemy that you're kind of rallying against. In the studio, we kind of came up with the phrase, play as a team, win as a team, and that's kind of been our mantra as we've been developing and thinking about how to make this work.
So one thing we really wanted to feature in the game to help reinforce playing as a team, and as Ben said, play as a team, win as a team, is unique character types. So I'm just going to go through our 3 character types here, because our teams feature 3 different races. So we have the speed type. These are the fastest guys on the track, featuring characters such as Sonic and Shadow. And they've actually got a defensive radial boost ability that you can trigger from drifting. The radial boost ability actually absorbs any enemy projectiles coming towards you. The next guys are the technique types. So these guys are very nimble. They've got great acceleration. You can use them to weave through the pack to get an advantage. These are characters such as Tails and Silver. They can also drive straight across any sort of slowdown surfaces like gravel, grass that you might find on the sides of the tracks. So you get a cheeky shortcut, cut a corner. Any gravel on the corner won't affect you. It's a very strong ability. And then finally, we've got the power class, or the power type. These are the big guys on the track. They use great boost and defense to muscle their way through the pack to gain an advantage. And these are characters such as Knuckles, Big the Cat. And they can actually destroy any track hazards. So any sort of obstacle that's in your way, they can drive right through it without suffering any negative impact. So no slowdown, no spin-outs. And they can even smash through a few like secret walls to find a cheeky shortcut as well. So that's great. And you can actually mix and match these guys to come up with your own teams to get the best team for your team style of play.
Yep.
But rewinding a bit, how did we get here? So the project started around 2.5 years ago. Sumo were approached by Sega to develop a co-op racer. It's a great fit. We've got a rich history with Sega. We've developed a lot of racing games. So it worked really well. We wanted to develop something that was deep enough that you could play competitively with your friends online, make sure that you could have a good race. But we also wanted to make something that really allowed people with various skill levels to play. So for example, if you've got children, you wanted to play with them, maybe they're not as good as you, maybe they're better than you, or younger or older siblings. We wanted you all to be able to play together without having any negative experiences. So this was something that really suited our team-style gameplay. So something that really resonated with us at the studio. It was exciting. So coming from Transformed, we had a really solid foundation. It's a well-known karting game. Fans are familiar with it. It was well received. So we began to iterate and build on this and develop it. We really wanted to add a sort of another strategic layer on top of that to make something a bit more unique and play into this team mantra that we're working on.
So a lot of our early work at the studio in the design team was spent on figuring out how we were going to do this, how we were going to what direction we were going to go to build this gameplay that revolved around your teammates and interacting with them. And so we came up with these principles that kind of helped guide us in the right direction as we were building things out and coming up with ideas. First one, team play should provide ways to be helpful to your friends. It should give you things to do that benefit them. Secondly, helping teammates should feel rewarding to do. Playing as a team shouldn't undermine just the basic fun of racing. We knew that putting in some really complicated or oblique thing where you had to do some really complex maneuvers or slowing down for teammates. We knew that wasn't going to work. We knew that anything we built in had to kind of fit into the existing framework of just racing, and that needed to be, everything had to follow that. And most importantly, the winning strategy should always come from working as a team. You should always be more effective if you're taking advantage of all of the team play than if you're just kind of being a lone wolf. That should only get you so far. And an early problem that we kind of anticipated and kind of thought of ways to solve was we knew that players would pick up the game and they'd bring in their kind of preconceptions of what a racing game is and how you play racing games. And we wanted to find some ways to bridge the gap to what kind of the experience that we were delivering. We needed to emphasize that it was like a kind of team event, almost like a team sport, and get the player invested in the team's success, not just their own. And so we kind of sought out ways to encourage players and remind them that they have these teammates and they're important and can help them out and useful. We did that through a few ways. First of all, via game mechanics. So Pete's going to talk a little bit about that later. And secondly, through theming and just characterization of the characters.
So we really wanted to develop a sense of camaraderie among the teams and make it feel as though they had real friendships and rivalries. And a big advantage of focusing on the Sonic cast has been basically that we have all these great characters that already have established bonds and a familiarity. And if you played any of the previous Sonic games, you'll know that they already have established teams as well. And so what we came up with was this team comm system, which basically helps to reinforce the team actions in the game, which we'll get onto in a moment. And it helps to emphasize the sense of being in a team, even when you're not necessarily doing team-based actions. So hearing your teammates chatting to you and helping, basically, maybe
cheering
saying,
you on almost.
Yeah, cheering you on, saying good job if you've done something good in the race, like a fantastic stunt, or maybe if someone on another team might come to you and say, oh, good job, buddy, if you spin them out after hitting them with a rocket or something. That kind of helps develop a sense of rivalry among the teams.
So another question we needed to answer was how we're going to decide who wins. Inherently in a kart racer, it's a sort of a solo experience most of the time. So we built a tally system, as you can see in the video behind me. We really wanted to make sure that racers finishing in a higher position was reflected in the final scoring, and that contributed to your team's overall score. But the best way of doing this is working together in a team. You achieve the most through team play, and that kind of folds back into our mantra of play as a team, win as a team. So finishing in a higher position gets your team more points. Now, in the video behind me, you can see Silver, who's a member of the green team, has actually finished first. But Team Sonic actually take the victory. Team Sonic's probably had some great team play, some great interactions going on. And even though they didn't take that first place in the individual finishing ranks, their team won overall. Again, really reinforcing this mantra of playing as a team is the way to win. So now we understand what the team experience is we're looking for. We really needed to think about how we're going to achieve that, how we're going to provide players with ways to interact with each other, help each other, work together whilst they're in the thick of this race. There were some things that were obviously not going to work from the outset, so healing, we don't have a health system, squad spawning doesn't really make sense in a racer. So we started to experiment. One of the earlier things we tried was a buff system. The racer types that I mentioned earlier, so you could drive closer to a different type of racer and they could buff you. So for example, if you were the power type, you could drive close to a speed type racer, give them a passive buff. But in the scenario of a fast-paced, frantic kart racer, this doesn't really work. Everyone's concentrating on driving, dodging things, firing things. To have this extra level of something else you've got to take into consideration whilst racing, it was too much. A lot of the time, just the fact that you could be anywhere on the track, you couldn't get close enough to someone to apply the buff. So we ended up going back to the drawing board, starting to think about what we wanted to make. The thing we learned from this, though, is that whatever we made really needed to fit into this fast-paced, frantic environment. It needed to work. So we thought about how that could be sort of used by players. One thing we thought about was anything you did would have to be, you'd have to execute it by driving skillfully. You're already focused on driving, or it needed to be a really quick, snappy button press. So it was quick, basically. And all these things that you did always needed to work towards either speeding up your team members or slowing down your opponents. So we developed team actions. The first of these team actions is item box transfer. Now, if you've ever played a karting game and you've gone a long period of time without picking up an item, or someone's maybe just nipped in front of you and taken an item that you were going for, you know the sort of frustration that can cause. So in Team Sonic Racing, you can actually request an item from your teammates. But again, it's that quick button press. It uses our team comm systems that Jar spoke about earlier, and it'll pop up on your teammate's screen saying, hey, I need an item. Likewise, if you've got an item and you're out in front, maybe you're really far ahead, but your teammates are suffering a bit. Maybe they're a bit lower down the pack. And you pick up an item, you don't need it, quick button press, you can offer it to them. And then a very interesting thing about this mechanic, as you send an item to a teammate, it actually powers it up, so you get a more powerful item. So if someone's lagging behind, you can send them help really quickly. A crucial thing about this is it can be used anywhere on the track. So regardless of what position you're in, where you are, your teammates are never really out of reach.
So our second team action is the skin boost. And in other karting games, if you get hit by a well-aimed attack or a really nasty shunt that might send you off into a wall or something, you're pretty much out of the running and you're almost guaranteed to lose that race. But with the skim boost, you'll have teammates who you can rely on to get you out of a jam. So if you get slowed down or shunted, they'll be able to bring you back up to speed. And as you can see in this video, Sonic messes up his stunt, gets slowed down quite a bit, and Tails strategically positions himself to drive past to catapult him back up to speed once again and get him back in the race. So during development, we often look to places outside of games for inspiration, and it was not really any different for the mechanics in this game. And for the skim boost, we looked at Olympic track racing, which is a team-based event. And in that, they basically have an action called the hand sling, where they take the hand of a teammate behind them and pull them forward and give them a huge boost of speed. And looking at real sports really helped us capture that sense of a real team event and carry that over into the game. And we went through multiple iterations of the skim boost, and we were finding that the window between being spun out and when a player would be able to drive past to skim boost you was often too short to be effective. So in our final implementation of this team action, racers are basically able to perform the skim boost no matter what speed they're going at. And this very small but effective change has allowed the skim boost to be opened up and be a lot more accessible to the racers during the fast-paced gaming. And this basically gives more opportunity for those people who might be falling back to be helped by the teammates, but also plenty of opportunities for expert players to be a lot more strategic and tactical in the way they use these mechanics. So our third team action is the slingshot maneuver, where racers can basically drive in the wake of their leading teammate to get a huge boost of speed and to pull them down the track. And it's designed as a way to encourage racers to cooperate and to perform team actions together. And you may recognize this as drafting from other games, or maybe F1 or NASCAR. And for a while, we used a very traditional version of the slipstream or drafting, as I mentioned, where you'd have to drive up very close behind your teammates to utilize this effect. And we were finding that though this effect kept, it was allowing them to take turns boosting off one another, and it was really satisfying getting that rhythmic motion of moving in front of one another and getting quicker and quicker down the track. But what we really needed it to do was something extra, which was to keep them together whilst they were driving around the track, and it wasn't really doing that. And so in our final implementation of this, as you can see, is something that's a pretty big variation on that, which is only the frontmost player leaves this trail behind them, and so everyone on the team can then benefit from the advanced position of that leading teammate. And it basically rewards players for keeping together, but also gives them the tools to do so.
So, as Ben mentioned at the start of the presentation, rivalry was something we really wanted to play a part in the game, helps bring the team together, gives you someone to fight against. So in the video behind me, you can see the rival takedown system in action. And it's highlighting enemy or opponent racers who are the best ones for you to take out so that your team can gain an advantage and get those crucial positions. So it wasn't always like that. Oh, thank you. It began life as a team rescue. And this was a heavily scripted system where your team member would be under attack from an opponent racer. They'd be bearing down on them, and you'd have to swoop in and save them. It was a nice idea, but it didn't work, again, in the sort of fast-paced, frantic environment of a kart racing game. A lot of the time, if one of the elements of this situation didn't really line up, it would fall flat on its face. So, for example, if you had an enemy who was attacking your friend. Maybe he calls out on the team comm system that he needs help. You'd try and swoop in, and it could be a matter of meters where you weren't quite close enough, and it just ended up in disappointment rather than feeling that satisfying, yes, I saved him. And most of the time, that would be the case. So we went back to the drawing board, and we developed the rival takedown system. This highlights racers who are threatening your team members. So these are the guys who, you take them out, it's going to very likely provide you or multiple members of your team with a way of gaining positions or working towards adding points to that final scoreboard we saw at the end. It's much more dynamic, it's much more exciting, and it happens a lot, which is important in this team game. We want these team actions to be happening frequently throughout the race.
Yep. Thanks. And finally, we have the Team Ultimate, which you can see on screen. It's a huge boost that you can get, and it's really the ultimate expression of teamwork in the game. The way it works is, over the course of the race, as you're doing these team actions, you're charging a meter that you share amongst your team. All three of you are pitching in to fill this meter. And when it's full, you get the ability to unleash it, this massive boost. And while you're in this boost, you're also invincible, so you can use it to spin out opponents, or just go through a hazardous part of the track unharmed. So it gives you this huge advantage in the race. And an added thing with this is that when you get this Team Ultimate, you can use it whenever you want. You can use it freely, but when you use it at the same time as your teammates, it actually gets more powerful. We wanted to promote this kind of feeling of coordinating with your teammates to kind of find the right time. We wanted people to be playing online and kind of talking over chat, saying like, "Oh, I want to use the ultimate now," and then somebody else saying like, "No, not yet. I'm going around the corner." That kind of coordination turned out to be like really, really fun in playtesting, and so we kind of leaned into it and provided that bonus for if you can coordinate well enough.
So to conclude, we've built a really dynamic, cool kart racer with a unique co-op experience layered into it. I think it's an experience that people won't have had before, or I doubt will have had before, and I'm really excited to see how you guys play, what you do with these team mechanics. And it's one thing, as we've come to the end of development and we've played it more, and something that we've actually started to lean into is how these team mechanics that we've been working on actually overlap each other whilst you're racing. So something I quite enjoy doing whilst playing is coming up behind my teammate if they're in front of me. Say I'm playing a power class, I'm a bit slower, and using the slingshot mechanic, I follow their trail and I get the boost from the slingshot, and as I get that boost, I just edge in close enough to give my teammate a skin boost. That way we both get a boost. Again, get ahead, both of us get ahead, helping each other and racking up those points to take the win. These things are really emergent and interesting.
Yeah, something we started to notice as we were kind of building these systems and kind of polishing them and refining them, we noticed as people were playing in our kind of regular playtest that strategies were kind of forming, just like really clever things that we didn't really intend to be the way that the abilities were supposed to be used, but they were just kind of taking advantages of the systems that we'd built and just kind of putting them together to make some cool results. One of my favorite that we saw a few months ago, we started seeing people who were playing as any of the technique racers, like Tails. You can see Tails there in that picture, driving on the grass, having a whale of a time. He's not affected by any of the rough terrain. He doesn't slow down. And so they were taking advantage of that by basically using that ability to rescue their teammates who had driven on the rough terrain and skin boost them. Basically like pulling them out of the sand or the grass. Yeah, we didn't kind of intend for people to be able to do that necessarily, but it was just so cool, and we were so excited by the ways that people were just forming their own strategies. And we're really excited for when you guys get your hands on it to form your own strategies and see what you can do.
So that's it. That's the end of the talk. We really hope that you've enjoyed finding out a bit more about Team Sonic Racing and all the team actions that are part of the game. Team Sonic Racing releases this winter on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. And we have a playable demo on the show floor, which is sort of in that direction. So make sure you stop by and have a go of the game. Thank you very much.
We've got time for some questions. I don't know how much time we have, but we should have time for some.
No
Oh,
questions.
someone's heading up.
Hiya.
Hi.
Hey.
You mentioned in the presentation that you'll be able to have like a rival system. Does that mean, like, say I'm playing as Knuckles and I deliberately target Big the Cat during the game? Big the Cat is going to hunt me down during the race?
It doesn't work like that. It's not a revenge system. It's basically a method for the game to give you it's giving you a kind of bounty on certain racers at certain points in the race, and letting you know that if you take this person out, it's going to be a really big benefit to your team position. You saw it in the beginning how we described the race scoring. Certain people, if you overtake them, it boosts your rankings in the race. And so it's the game's way of telling you about that, and also a way to get team ultimate points. So it's a like little dynamic, little kind of prioritization thing.
Okay.
But you can still hunt Big the Cat if you want.
You can still attack Big whenever you want. Yeah.
I think I'd rather be big and just deliberately hunt other players down, because that'll be hilarious.
Correct.
That's
especially-
good, because
Correct
I like
answer.
playing Big Cat
Good.
too.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh, I like your
right?
shirt.
thank you.
Yeah.
So you say the racetracks are based off of like previous Sonic games.
Yep.
Can you highlight a few of them? Like what kind of Sonic games the racetracks have been taken from?
Well, we have a couple that are on the show floor at the moment, which are based on Planet Wisp from Colors.
Colours.
And we also have Ice Mountain that is based on a combination of different ice levels across different games.
Yeah. I think we took a little bit of inspiration from Ice Cap Zone and Sonic
Yeah.
Advance, and a little
Yeah.
bit from Glacial Land. Yeah.
But we cannot tell you at the moment about any of the others. So you'll have to play the game for that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much.
Stay tuned.
you.
More info to come on those tracks. Yeah.
It's got to be some more.
Any more? I think, oh, someone's coming up.
Yeah.
This one.
With the, you were saying the scoring system's a bit different to like a regular racing game. Is it hard to design something like that where you want the team play to come in, but also, you know, if someone gets first, second, third, and another team gets fourth, fifth, sixth, then, you know,
It's quite
I think-
challenging. isn't it?
Yeah. I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like not one team's not gonna say, well, we clearly did better than them, and
Sure.
but
sure. Yeah.
the
Like
order reverse.
the big goal with designing the scoring system was making something that factored in like everybody's performance, everybody in your team. So you've got 3 people in your team, and it should factor in how everybody did, but it should also feel fair. So the result, you should
Yeah.
kind of look at it and think, oh, that makes sense. You know, like if that
You
example
can't
on the board
carry.
there, like one of your team members comes first, but then the other 2 don't do so well, it kind of makes sense why you don't win overall. But
Yeah.
it's pretty. We figured out something that was pretty intuitive and kind of it doesn't really need much explanation when you're playing it. It just kind of makes sense as you're playing.
Cool. Thank you. Is it local multiplayer as well as online?
Yes.
Yes,
Silver,
yeah.
yeah.
Can you combine the two as well?
Yes,
Yes,
you can
good
play up to
question.
4-player split screen online as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As you mentioned with the car customization, I was just curious about the fact that is it possible to basically have a sort of hybrid between power and technique or something like that with the customization to almost create custom classes? Is that possible?
So we're not going too deep into the vehicle customization system right now. There's going to be more info to come, so stay tuned. But I can tell you that, yeah, basically it's a way to customize the performance of your car and the looks of your car to kind of suit your driving style.
Okay.
Thank you.
You mentioned, You mentioned a team comm system.
Mm-hmm.
How are the chows going to communicate through that?
Well, the chows themselves don't speak, but we have Omo Chow who's piloting that car, so he's the one who speaks for them.
How many characters are going to be in the base roster?
There'll be 15 playable characters in the base, 12 of which have been announced so far, and a few more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Hi. You said you took inspiration from real-world sports. Can you talk about the inspiration from any of the other mechanics?
Yeah, briefly. So, as Jazz mentioned, one of the big kind of aha moments we had with the skin boost and the slingshot to some extent was watching track cycling and seeing the kind of techniques that they pulled off to kind of eke out every last kind of second from the performance. We also, kind of influences come from a lot of places, like the dialogue system. We looked at a lot of other games to kind of look for the right way to do it and kind of get inspiration on. I think Star Fox was an early kind of thing we looked to and said, oh yes, this does it right. This kind of is a way to kind of characterize the cast and give them kind of some screen time, but also stay out of the way of the gameplay so you can kind of get on with what you're playing. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you mentioned that Sega was they came to you with the idea of a team-based racing game, like cooperative. Was it your team or Sega that originally proposed the idea for it to be Sonic-related, basically?
I
or is
think
that something you're not allowed to say or something?
I think it was a. This would have been before I joined on, but from what I know, it was a collaboration of kind of a lot of discussion between Sumo and Sega of figuring out what would be a good next step for kind of the Sumo racing games. Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers.
Hi guys, so obviously you guys have played it a lot more than most at the moment, so I was just wondering who your 3 favourite characters are and why.
Rouge, straight away.
Rouge?
Yeah.
Rouge, okay.
Oh.
I'm quite fond of Knuckles, and I'm really glad that you have a Knuckles t-shirt. Yeah, I like playing Power Class.
I'm going to say Tails.
Controversial.
I can see Derek there just like pumping his fist.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Is that all
Thanks,
the questions?
guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you could please give our guests just one more round of applause for a really detailed and interesting session. Next up here at the developer stage at EGX, we are talking about building the dreaming city in Destiny 2 Forsaken. So don't miss that, although if you are here in the theatre, you do, of course, have to leave and then come back in again. It's good to stretch your legs. But anyway, thank you so much for coming and indeed watching online. See ya.